Hi, this is Lori from GLP-1 Journey in Review. Today we're doing a video in my interview series where we talk to people about their weight loss journey. Today we have with us George, who is also a content creator. His information is going to be linked down below in the description. So make sure that you hit that like and subscribe button. And when you're done watching this video, hop on over to George's channel and do the same. And please remember to hype this video because that really does help. I want to remind everybody that I am not a healthcare provider. My guest is not a healthcare provider. We're talking about what works for us. I have been on compounded Tirzepatide for almost 2.5 years. I've been in maintenance for over a year. All that being said, George, why don't you introduce us to yourself?
All right, so simply, my name is George Logan. I reside in the wonderful state of Connecticut. I've been here married now for 38 years. I have 3 adult children, 2 married, and one is about to get married, we hope, so we can get rid of him. And we have, so far, 5 grandchildren. And
That's great.
in my day job, I am a environmental consultant. My background is I have a master's in conservation biology, so I'm a little bit of a science geek of sorts, and started this journey about 7 months ago.
And which medication are you on, and about how much weight have you lost?
So as of 3 days ago, because I heard I hit a little plateau for about 3 days, I'm down just over 56 pounds. And I'm on 12.5 of Tirzepatide. By the way, have you ever had anyone eat their yogurt during interviews? So this might be first one for you.
Hey, protein.
Right. And it's Greek yogurt. So
Awesome.
12.5 is the dose I've been on for now, probably 3 months. I kind of landed on 12.5, and that seemed to work for me without too much issues. And honestly, I was afraid to go to 15 because I heard that some people don't react very well to that. So far, so good.
What made you decide to use a GLP-1 medication in the first place?
Yeah, so that's interesting. About 2 years ago, my doctor, I'm a part of a DPC, direct primary care, and my physician is a wonderful doctor who's actually certified for obesity and medicine, among other things too. And he's kind of watching me, and I'm on a statin at that point, low dose of a statin for my cholesterol, obviously. And he wanted to do I guess they call it a Boston heart study, which is they look at your panels at a much greater detail. So, for instance, they'll look at LDL and look at all the several categories of particle sizes and things like that. And just a deep dive into metabolic health. And I remember him telling me at that point that my pancreas was working at about 240%. And it didn't kind of ring too much, except that didn't sound like a good thing. So a year later, I'm kind of tootling around going, and he really never talked about GLP-1s at that time. But obviously, he wanted to keep monitoring me, and he suggested that I needed to lose some weight. GLP-1s didn't come into play until about a year later, so this is now early 2025. He sent me to get a electrocardiogram of my heart, because, well, it was one of those things that needed to be done. And my cardiologist came back and said, George, you have an ascending aortic aneurysm, and it's now bumped into above the area. So it was at 4.4, 4.5 centimeters, and now it bumped to 4.6. So it went out over the threshold, I guess, that they consider something that's important. And apparently I have high blood pressure. And I had no really monitor my high blood pressure. So that was a little bit of a jolt to me.
Mhm.
And obviously all these things are connected. At that time, I was probably 265 pounds or so thereabouts, early 2025. And then we started having the GLP-1 medication. At first, very, very gently. He wasn't trying to push anything to me. But apparently my wife was much more interested in that than I was at the time. So we started having a conversation. And of course, I didn't know anything about GLP-1s. If you asked me about spotted salamanders, I could, but not about GLP-1s. And so we started having a conversation. And so he explained to me what they were. I did a little deep dive, started learning things about it. Because I have a science background, so I got on various platforms and started doing deep dives and this, that, and the other thing, and decided, okay. And then, funny story, in my part of my research, I came across the downsized. So I started listening to them. I'm like, this guy's about the same height as me. He's lost 100 pounds. This is Chris Durham,
Christopher.
right? And my wife says he looks a little like me. I'm like, no, I think I'm a little more handsome. But anyhow, and
We'll have
so
to get a debate between you two.
yeah, I started listening to him, and I was really, really encouraged because this was real experience, not just science. They were obviously putting some science in there, but it was more, hey, this is something they did. If they can do it, I can certainly do it. So I started in July 28th of this past year, 2025. Started very slowly, and here's the kicker. I'll be 67 in May, so I was 66 at that time. So I was on Medicare, and my doctor, we'll call him Dr. K. Both of my doctors are K's, Dr. K's. So Dr. K said, it's going to be difficult to get Medicare to approve you for weight loss, even though you have all these other comorbidities. But you have sleep apnea. And he said, I might convince them that if you use Tirzepatide, which has been approved for sleep apnea, that we get it. And we did.
Wow.
So that was good. Of course, the expense was a little bit of a jolt because even in the Medicare, you still have to pay a significant amount of money per year. They cap you at $2,000, which I guess it is what it is. So, yeah, and that's how the journey started, slowly.
Well, as long as you brought up the Medicare, I'm also on Medicare. I didn't even bother because mine was strictly weight. And, yes, I did have cholesterol and high blood pressure, which I no longer take medication for. But, you know, there are a lot of older people that could really benefit from these medications. And it's the Medicare that really gets in the way because I know years ago, the reason why the law that they cannot cover weight loss drugs, years ago, they used to basically treat it with a speed type of medication. And
Yeah.
they really didn't want all these people, in their 70s and so forth on speed, for various reasons. And that's where the law came in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
So
it
here's the
makes it
fun part.
difficult.
So every year, Medicare will, when you reapply,
Mhm.
they reevaluate. So guess what happened? I go to get my medication in January, denied. What? So I went to Dr. K, almost like in a complete shock. Oh, this is the
Mhm.
end. My wife's like, no, don't go to the edge of the cliff yet. It's fine. You'll figure it out. And when he had put in the reasons, he did put sleep apnea, but he had also put weight loss. So now they caught the weight loss and they denied it, ignoring the sleep apnea. So what my doctor said is, okay, forget the weight loss. let's just sleep apnea, and it kicked back in.
Unfortunately, like myself, I don't have sleep apnea. So either I have to pay cash or go through like Lilly Direct, or Compound, as my choices. And I know a lot of people, 'cause I live in a retirement area, and a lot of people are in that position and are on fixed incomes. And even, the $200 or whatever the compound is too much money. And they could be benefiting tremendously. Like I said, I personally, was over 65 when I started this. Uh, Actually, right about 65 when I started this. And I feel so much better. My joints are better because I'm not carrying all that weight around. I'm no longer taking blood pressure medication. Uh, Debatable, whether I'm going to go off of my cholesterol medication. My doctor's just, a little bit slow on that since I have absolutely no side effects from that medication. He just, wants to err on the side of caution. And I know a lot of people are in that boat, but yet Medicare is what's stopping them. And I know recently they're going to be doing a study, and they're calling it a study, to get around this law, uh, for people on Medicare. But from what I'm reading, very few people are actually going to qualify.
And I see the same thing, and it really hurts me. It really makes me sad because I know people, even people that I'm close to, that
Mhm.
are on Medicare, and they will not be qualified. And they need it. They absolutely need it. And they're watching my journey, and they're asking me all kinds of questions. But the cost is the stumbling block for them right now. Now, maybe they should try, and if more and more people try, maybe that will make a difference. I don't know, but it's sad when something like this is out there that can have such an amazing result for so many people. And the problem is, I could probably afford the whole tilt, maybe.
Mhm.
It would be tough, but this is not so much of a problem for me paying. I pay $269. That's my copay.
Mhm.
I get to the 2000, and then it's free, which I haven't experienced yet, but apparently this is a full year, so I might. Um, but I know people that are in a much lower income bracket that I know, good friends and folks from our church, and even today I was talking to someone that could certainly use it, and she has joint problems, and I know that Tirzepatide, the study that came out, shows that joint inflammation goes down. Any kind of inflammation, right? Once you start taking these medications, they hit multiple systems, and that's what we're starting to realize. Um, all these good side effects, if you will. Yeah.
Plus the fact that, at least in my case, not carrying the 70, 75 extra pounds around is also helping my joints. Because like I would have chronic hip pain, after walking a bit, and totally gone, whether that's from the inflammation or not carrying around all that weight, or a combination of both.
Yeah, I heard this somewhere, and I don't know where I heard it, and I probably should go in and do a dive and find out. But someone told me, some medical professional, that every pound that you take off is 4 pounds off your knees.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of makes sense, right? Because of the fact that you're not sliding along the ground, you're basically putting pressure. And at some point, and those kinds of things kind of catch you unawares, you're kind of getting out and you're going to walk somewhere to your car, and you walk and you're like, what just happened? You notice that there's a difference in your gait and in how light you feel, and you're not out of breath. It's like, wow. So those things kind of cycle in. Now I had the same thing. I had the high blood pressure. By the time I got to about month 3, so it was pretty fast, my blood pressure completely normalized. And as a matter of fact, I was starting to, when I was doing resistance training, I was finding that I was getting a little lightheaded.
Mm-hmm.
And so I talked to my doc. He says, why don't you monitor yourself for a week, like twice a day, kind of randomized times of when you do it. Tell me what you see. So I told him, and he said, take off it. So I have 3 bottles of medication that are sitting there, and I haven't used it. And I'm the same way with my doc. So last time I did my lipid panel, my cholesterol was 97. Triglycerides down, LDL down, HDL, kind of hanging out to 39, 40, which is kind of cuspy. And so I've asked him, how about taking me off this? And I'm in the lowest dose possible. I'm in 5 milligrams of rosuvastatin. And he said, when you reach goal and you're in maintenance, we'll redo your panels and see if you're going to come off. But apparently I'm not having any side effects, and I wouldn't even know what the side effects would be because I feel so much better overall with being on GLP-1.
And I know I'm talking about people over 65, but the same thing happens to, younger people due to insurance, because it's expensive stuff. The insurance companies just don't want to pay it if they don't have to, because they're not looking at the long-term vision where, like they may be preventing me from getting open heart surgery in 10 years, which, probably costs a lot more
You think?
than what the Tirzepatide over the years is.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of what we say myopic, right? So they're short-sighted. They don't see the long game of how
Right.
the insurance companies would actually be saving tons of money. Hey, insurance companies, I hope you're listening.
And I also, with older people, I also want to get into the side that, just naturally they tend to eat a little bit less and sometimes become, under nutrition. And, adding a GLP-1 might actually hurt that. So, there are some cautions that doctors are taking with prescribing or suggesting GLP-1 medications to people over 65.
Correct. So here's the interesting part. My doctor, Dr. K, and the only reason I'm calling Dr. K is because his name is Indian and very long and so we love him. His first name is Vasant. He might listen to this at some point. The only way that he would prescribe it to me is if I would agree for a little slightly additional cost, because obviously I pay into his monthly into the DPC, which has just been wonderful for me because I go in and if I need an hour to talk to him, I got an hour to talk to him. It's just amazing. So he said, you have to enroll into my Vitality clinic. Weight, W8 vitality, like a combination of weight and vitality. I'm probably saying it wrong. And so so they're tracking me. So I would have had, if I didn't have my own personal trainer, would have had a personal trainer from their practice follow me up. And then they have a PhD nutritionist. And so her name is Liz. Hi, Liz. And so she watches me every 2 weeks. We have either an in-person or like we're doing it right now. And she asks me a whole bunch of questions. And we talk about all kinds of things. What I'm eating, how I'm sleeping, how I'm exercising, what my side effects might be or not. And then she transcribes all that information to Dr. K before he will prescribe me the next dose. So they weigh me, they look at me very carefully. And it's not a big expense for me. It's just a few tens of dollars per month extra. And it's well worth it in my mind. So that helps, because one of the things that I've noticed, and maybe I hope I'm not being negative, but there are many people that come into this journey that don't do the basic life-changing alterations,
Mm-hmm.
food and exercise, sleep and stress. They don't do these things. They just do minimal stuff and think that, and they're losing weight, but they're not resetting their system for a better
Mm-hmm.
lifestyle. And I had to, and this medication is such a wonderful tool. Might as well use it.
Mm-hmm.
Use it. Just don't look at it, and use it. So here I am. Lorraine will be very happy with me.
Got to keep those germs happy. You know, that's part of the journey.
That's right.
So, one thing that tends to happen, you know, whether you're over 65 or not, with weight loss is muscle loss. Uh, and naturally happens just with age, not necessarily with weight loss, but you put the two together and it definitely could be a problem. What is it that you're doing to try to keep that muscle loss to a minimum?
I'm an animal. No, okay, never mind. So this is an interesting story. You remember a thing called COVID pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, and I wasn't even in that space that I knew that I was actually doing something in preparation for me to do this journey in a healthy way. But my daughter, Sophia, married Pat. And Pat is Mr. Schwarzenegger. He's a personal trainer. He actually has a master's degree in exercise science from Springfield College, which is kind of famous for that up here in Massachusetts. And I started going to a gym that he was part of just before COVID. And then COVID hit. And we started doing Zoom sessions. And slowly and steadily, this is 2019, I started doing more resistance training, not knowing that I was going to get on a GLP-1 journey, because my daughter kept telling my wife that I want Dad to be around to enjoy my children, because she had a question in her mind whether that was going to be, because over time I had ballooned to. I started this journey at 256 pounds, right? So now I'm 199.8. Woohoo! But I've ballooned all the way.
Wonderland.
Yes, I know. Who'd have thunk? But I ballooned at some point in the past all the way to almost 300. So she knew that. And so she convinced me, I guess, through a little pressure from my wife, to start doing resistance training. Now, years back, I would go to the gym, and I was all about, lifting weights, and I had done pretty well. But then I gained the weight, lost the weight, gained the weight, lost the weight. So I was just sick and tired of all that. So 2019 to now 2025, I was doing resistance training from my gym that I have down in my basement, which I've, over time, you get more equipment.
Mm-hmm.
I got a squat rack, and then I got a bench, and then I got some weights. And interestingly enough, when COVID hit and all the gyms were closing, they were selling their stuff for real cheap.
Mm-hmm.
So I took advantage of that. So I got stuff for, 50 cents on the dollar in most cases, and barely basically new. So 2 times a week, down from my basement on Zoom with Pat, I do about do a little warm up. So probably 70 to 80 minutes so I spend about, say, 600 to 700 calories of doing resistance training. And now I've had to lower my weights because of my ascending aorta problem.
Mm-hmm.
I have to avoid going to Valsalva maneuver, which I'm sure you know what it's about.
I know. I do CAT scans, so I understand all
Oh,
that.
yeah, right. So I just did a CAT scan. Actually, they redid my aorta to make sure that
Mm-hmm.
the ultrasound was the same as the CAT, and it is. So I'm at 4.6 to 4.7, and they did it with a dye. That was fun. Well, I feel a little hot. So anyhow, so that's what I do. So I do that. So two times a week, more or less intense, and we kind of rotate. So it's circuit training. And then honestly, what I discovered is I was starting to lose a little weight from muscle. And then Pat said, you know, 2 more sessions on your own, minimal, 20 to 30 minutes. So let's say yesterday I did chest and tries, and today or tomorrow I'm going to do back and buys, and then I'll get back to what I do. And then the off days, I did something else which was amazing. I needed to do something aerobic because I think that's also important. And I didn't really have anything in the winter that I was enjoying, like walking outside, which my wife was, you doing an interview or can we go walking? I said, I'm doing an interview. So I went on to Facebook Marketplace and found out that a guy literally down the street, about a mile from where I'm sitting, is a personal trainer, and he has a full gym, amazing gym in his garage. His cars are outside, his gym is, and he's a personal trainer, so people come to him. It's quite an amazing thing. And he wanted to get rid of a professional rower.
Oh, I love rowing.
Right? And he had a Cascade. I don't know if you're familiar with Cascades. $2,500 new. $500. I rolled it down the hill, rolled it down to my basement, and it's been there sitting. I absolutely love it. Now, funny story, now that I've lost weight, my butt hurts a little more.
Me too. No
So
padding.
now my padding is gone. So what do? I used to be a bicyclist. So I have my biking pants. So I put my biking pants over my sweatpants. So I have a little extra padding. And okay, so I do my 3,000, 4,000 meters. So yeah, I'm exercising every day. And so 4 times I'm doing some kind of resistance training, twice a week. And so I just got my in-body, and this is my old in-body. So in-body, for folks who might be listening, everyone knows that DEXA scans is the gold standard, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, they lay you down, but of course there's kind of a little bit of radiation that's happening there, not too bad. Not as bad as a CAT scan, and obviously not as bad as an X-ray. But so I did the DEXA scan, I think like a month in, I think in October, and I'll probably do one when I reach my goal, which is about 8 or 9 pounds from now, hopefully. And my doctor has the in-body scanner, which is close to the DEXA scan. Oh, these are Liz's notes on the back. I guess she took a photocopy of that. At any rate, and so what I discovered is that the last in-body scan that I did said that over the last month, everything that I lost was fat. And I did not lose any dry lean mass. So it has 2 categories here. Now, this is from the previous month. The other one is in the kitchen. I thought I brought it in. And I made the calculation. So I think it was like 55 pounds for that scan, the more recent one that I did, I had lost from the beginning 3.3% of lean mass over 55 pounds of overall loss. Not the 15, the 20, or the 25% that you've heard from some of these studies. So, folks, it can be done. You just have to be consistent and do the right thing. And I'm not going for the big weights. As a matter of fact, I found out that even with me going down in the amount of weight that I lift because of my doctor's recommendation, don't go crazy. So I don't do 300 plus pounds of deadlifts now. I'm happy with 200.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife still thinks I'm crazy. So, and I don't go for 165, 170 pounds of, bench press. I'm 137, but I do 12 to 15 reps instead of doing 5 or 6 and grunting it out. Because the data is out that you can still gain muscle by repetition, by higher reps and lower weights than doing lower reps with higher weights.
Absolutely.
So that's a myth that you can't gain muscle that way.
You mentioned that you're like 8 or 9 pounds from goal. Do you have any plans for when you hit goal? Are you going to stay on the medication? Are you going to try to titrate down? Are you going to spread it out? Or
yeah, that's a very good question. I'm not like Chris Durham. I'm on 15 and I'm staying here.
Yeah.
I have no plans. I'm like, okay, Chris. But being a scientist, I'm probably going to experiment on myself. And see. Because as of today, if you go and look at and I haven't done it for maybe a couple of months, there's actually a place where you can go and see what research is being done, your CRTs and your meta-analysis, or your CRTs in particular, what are being done on GLP-1s. And there maybe some studies have started now that are trying to watch people and see how as they titrate down, instead of cold turkey, actually doing a study to see how they would respond and what lifestyle modifications could be had that might help them not to gain the 60% of their weight in a year to a year and a half, which is the older study. So I think what I'm going to do is, once I get to maintenance, which is going to be hopefully by May. Although right now, as I said, I'm in a little bit of a interesting little plateau that I'm trying to negotiate. I'm trying to bribe my body, but it's not listening to me right now. So I'll probably go to 10 and see what happens. And if it looks good and I'm maintaining, I'll go to 7.5 and then reach a point where, but honestly, at this point, I don't know. I really don't know, because the studies are not there to show what happens. And if you go down slowly, I mean, there's some anecdotal stuff that I've heard, and you probably have heard, with people that are microdosing, or they spread out their dose. Let's say they get down to 5, and then instead of taking it once a week, they will spread it out to once a week and a half, 10-day or 12-day. So,
at least for myself, I was traveling. I didn't really feel like bringing it with me, and then I got like stuck another week. So basically, I was like 3 weeks out, and the food noise was definitely coming back. And knowing everything I know, I still can see how, if I went too much longer, some of the bad habits were going to come back. I have a friend who was on Ozempic for several years because of her diabetes and never really had a side effect until she did several years later, and it was so bad that she basically weaned herself off the Ozempic and was off of it for, I think, like 4 or 5 months. Has gained like 15 pounds. Her sleep apnea has gotten worse. Her blood panels have gotten worse. So, I could see that happening. So for me, I'm okay if this is a forever type of medication. Although
Yeah.
that there are new medications coming out, the uh, oral ones, not so crazy about the Wegovy, because one reason I just don't really see myself giving up coffee for that long of a period of time in the morning, because you have to have absolutely nothing. But the orforglipron may be doable. So, that might be a route to go as far as, expenses, but like I'm okay if I'm on this, basically for the rest of my life, as long as I could afford it.
Yeah, I mean, I know some people, even this morning when I was talking to someone at our church who's been watching these videos that I do and the ones probably you do and others. And she's like, well, I don't know if I want to be on GLP-1 because then I'll have to be on it forever. And I don't want to be on it for the rest of my life because I don't want to put synthetic stuffs in my body. And I'm like, are you listening to yourself? Look, the risks that you're putting yourself under right now, you're overweight, you have all kinds of issues because, she has, inflamed knees, sort of inflammation,
Mhm.
partly because of weight, and I'm not sure if she's diabetic or not, but you'll feel so much better. You'll do so much better, and then by that time maybe there's something else that is better than what we have now. I mean, science does progress, right?
Mhm.
And so, I mean, if someone really has a chronic disease, forget Weight Watch, wait. And this medication is keeping you alive and keeping you healthy. Are you going to stop it because it's synthetic? That doesn't make any sense to me.
I could pretty well guess too, if they're overweight or obese, that they've probably put something in their body that isn't organic, fast food type of thing, frozen type of food, you know, which is probably worse.
Yeah, some are. This particular lady, no, she's very much she's arguing with me about something that I was. Oh yeah, that I don't buy organic cucumbers. Okay, because there are some vegetables that might have a little bit of higher potential for having a little bit of residual pesticide on it. I get it. So I peel my cucumbers, and why you peel your cucumbers? Oh, your nutrition. I'm like, stop it. So there are some people that are eating right to the extent that they can, but they're still overweight because they have other comorbidities.
Hmm.
This particular person has a thyroid problem, so that has kind of messed her up. Um, so yeah, but yeah, and talking about fast food, um, it almost has eclipsed from my vocabulary.
Hmm.
I haven't, and I won't name them, gone the doors of any of those places in 7 months, and I don't miss it because I've discovered something else. And here's where Christopher Durham and I are like compadres. I love cooking. I absolutely love cooking. As a matter of fact, I make up my own recipes, and so
So does
um,
he.
yeah, I know because and I get even worse. He doesn't do this, I'm sure. So I use AI for my work. I have
Hmm.
pure research AIs, and then I have some language AIs too. And so I figured out that I can go around with a piece of pad and go to my refrigerator and say, I have this, 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 this. Go to my pantry. I have this, 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 this. Take a picture of it, throw it into AI and say, okay, here are the parameters. I want no more than 500 calories. I want 35 to 40 grams of protein. I want low glycemic index. I want 10 grams net carbs and nothing more than that. And I want it to be flavorful, and I wanted to have a Mediterranean twist because that's kind of my twist.
Mm-hmm.
And it throws out a recipe. And then I argue with the AI back and forth. I make some changes. And then it gives me all the macronutrients, all the micronutrients. Voila. Now, that's an extra step. I don't have to do that because my wife she's scared of me. She's like Lorraine. She doesn't cook. I was listening to her last night. They did an episode.
They have a new cooking series.
I know. I watched that one with the tenderloin, which I have a tenderloin in my refrigerator, and I'll get out. So we're exactly the same thing here. I just love cooking, and I love throwing things together and using some of these AI tools to come up with things that are flavorful. Yeah. And I grew up in Greece. I don't know if I told you that. So I'm a dual citizen. I'm a Greek citizen and an American citizen, obviously. And I grew up in Greece. I came here when I was 19 years old. And so growing up in Greece, we ate peasants' meals. We couldn't afford meat. Meat's expensive. So we would have it maybe twice a week. And my mother would try to do beef and fish, and maybe holidays would have a little more. But we got our protein from legumes, fava beans, lentil beans, and all kinds of things. And very colorful, very tasteful food. And here's the thing. Because I'm an only child, and in Greece, poor woman, she was an expert cook, wonderful cook, my mother. And she only had a son. So guess what? She would put the apron on me and bring me into the kitchen and say, do this, do that. So I grew up helping my mother cook in the kitchen. So the kitchen didn't scare me, and it still doesn't. And of course, when I went to college, I put myself through college, part of my college, by working in Greek restaurants. So.
Let's talk a little bit about your plateau. Tell me about it.
Yeah. This is interesting. So I think I'm going to say that my plateau is not a real plateau. It's a plateau on what the scale says, but it's not a plateau, is what my body composition. So I have a Hume body pod, like a lot of people. And I use that every other day or so. And that one says that I'm still losing fat, and I'm losing visceral fat, and my lean mass is staying stable. So there's a recomposition that's going on right now. So I dropped down to 199.2, and that was sometime about a week ago. And then I bounced back up, and then I bounced back down, and I bounced back up, and I've been doing yo-yo, and I'm still at 199.8 today. And I still do the same thing. I track my food. Sorry, Chris. I track my food. Because being scientific, I like graphs and I like tables and things like that. So that's the way I roll. Maybe it's my what's remaining of my past time of Weight Watchers or something. Who knows? So my plateau is sort of a wobble that's going on now, recompositioning maybe of my body. And I've talked to my nutritionist, and she says you could do two things, which sound counterproductive. I'm not sure I'm exactly. So now, if you see my body scan gives me a basal metabolic rate, right? So those are the calories that your body will use on a daily basis if you do nothing, just metabolic. And this was from a little while ago, will tell me I'm about 2,000 calories. My human body power will say that I'm at around 1,890 or so because of my height. I'm 5'11", so it puts all those things in there, and I have a little extra muscle, so I'm at somewhere in the probably average about 10 to 12% more muscle mass than people my age. So ideal would be 100, and I'm at anywhere from 102 to 123%. So somewhere in there. So she said that you could do two things. One, don't go for a caloric restriction. Actually, eat more. For 1 week, shock your system by eating another 200 to 300 calories per day. Eat the same stuff. Don't eat more fat or just same thing you've been doing. And you probably will either not gain anything or you will gain just a little bit. When you get to the end of that week or 10 days, shock your system again by reducing your calorie intake by 500 calories. So go to where I'm at now, because so I'm about 250 to 300 calorie restriction under what my maintenance would be. And that might reset your metabolism again. Now, I haven't done a research to see how that holds with science, but that's an interesting concept to contemplate. So we'll see. But I don't know. I think it's wait and see, and if I don't seem to, if I still been hovering around this weight, say for another week, maybe I'll entertain doing something like that, because I'm not going to go and start changing my diet necessarily or starting doing more exercise. I do plenty of exercise. So, so maybe my body has kind of reached the place where everything's good, everything's cool. And I'm like, no, it's not cool, because I still have some visceral fat. I can see it, right? So 190 is where I'd like to be. And here's the thing. Before when I was married, I was 180, 181, 182. So and for a long time, I was actually 178 until I discovered SAD, the Standard American Diet. So that's kind of what happened. So that's kind of where I'm at.
We're talking about the downsized a lot. So have you tried Lorraine's cheeseburger theory?
No. What is that?
Basically, when you hit a stall, go out, have a cheeseburger, maybe a couple fries, don't, kill yourself with this gigantic, huge meal, just to kind of basically reset your metabolism, and then, go back the next day to what you're normally doing. That way you'll get the extra carbs, the extra fat, the extra calories, same basic concept, but she uses the
don't have to go
cheeseburger.
too far. I can go to my refrigerator and my freezer and do the same thing. Because, there's another person who lives in this house that's not on a GLP-1 journey, and that's my son. He was 20, and he's a skinny mini, and he eats everything under the sun. That was me many years ago.
Myself
So
too.
we have the fries, we have the cheeseburgers, and we have we had a celebration yesterday, and for him and his fiance, and he was in charge of getting dessert. He brought cream puffs. I could eat 10 of those in a row. They're very, very addictive. I didn't. I ate 3. So there are things like that around here that I could
Mm-hmm.
show the system with. So we'll see. But here, I have this yogurt, which is full fat.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what? 140 calories, 14 grams of protein. And it's no added nothing. I like what I found is that the 2% or the 5% fat yogurt, Greek yogurt, actually is more satiating than the low fat, the non-fat, and it tastes better for me. It has that little tang to it, and this is people want to know this. So Faye, we're not making an advertisement here, and we're not sponsored by Faye. Sorry,
Nope.
Faye
But
in
if you're
Greece,
watching,
for Faye in Greece, this is a Greek word. You know what it means?
no.
Eat, eat. So it's telling you to eat. There you go. There you go. Faye. So what's your story? You started where? Where did you get to?
I started in like a week before the end of the year, a couple years ago. Uh, I want to say that my starting weight was 185. Now I'm only 5'2", but I know my weight was more because, I got approved for the GLP-1, through Compound. It arrived and it was almost the end of the year. And I'm like, nah, I'm not going to ruin Christmas and all that kind of stuff, and lots of stuff, and I want to get rid of everything in the house. So, like, I went on like a 2-week eating binge to get rid of it because
Oh
I don't know,
dear.
I was just taught not to waste food, which my mindset now has changed. And I'm okay with throwing away food if I'm
Yeah.
not hungry or I don't really feel like it. Um, and it took me about a year, and my goal weight actually kept changing. Originally, it was going to be 140 because that in my adult life was about the lowest that I had achieved through other diets. And then
Mm.
I'm like, well, that's still in the overweight category. So I'm like, all right, let's get into the normal weight. And I hit it, but like if it was a scale, I was literally right on that line. And if I was going to gain a pound or two, I would go back into overweight. So I'm like, let me get to the middle of what my normal weight should be. And that's about where I'm at. And like I hit that 118 mark and I'm like, no, this is where I'm going to stop. And my natural idea is, I don't want to go off the medication, but let's see about lowering the dose. I got up to 10. I actually tried 12.5 at one point, but I was forcing myself to eat, so I went back to 10 and slowly went down to 7.5 and it was fine. Then I went down to 5, had a little bit of food noise, so I kind of went back up to 7.5, and I stayed there up until about 2 months ago. And I don't know if it was a combination of being holiday time, the food noise was coming back, but I went back up to 10. And this week I went in between 7.5 and 10, and I'm doing okay. My goal is to get back down to 7.5 if I can. And
Yeah.
that's pretty much where I am.
Yeah. Well, that's so my original goal weight was 185, and then I started looking at my various metrics, my weight, my muscle mass, all that, and it looked like the ideal weight for me was anywhere from 195 to 205. And so this in-body scan was from 2 months ago because the other one I have in my kitchen. And at that point, my BMI was 29.6. And I think my BMI now is 27.2. And so I'm almost at the 25. I figured if I can
Hmm.
match my BMI 25, which again, it's just BMI is just a rough estimation.
Hmm.
If I can get to 25, probably at that point, I will be down, my fat mass will be probably in the 16.5 to 17%, because right now I'm at 18.2. So when I looked at the metrics, I changed from 185. I said, okay, well, let's do 190. And I only
How's
choose
the sleep
really,
apnea?
we're not supposed to talk about that because they might take me off. No, there is no sleep apnea.
Okay.
So what I do, because my doc has said, so when I said, Dr. K, what I'm doing, because you know what happens to us older adults, we have this knack to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. At least I do, and apparently others do. So when I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like sitting going there, now what? Okay, so I go to the bathroom and then go back to sleep. I would take these sleep apnea masks, I would take the mask off and then sleep the rest of the time. So I did that, and then my little watch tells me if I'm snoring, and it says I'm not. And I've tapped my wife and am I snoring? Because she wakes up too in the middle of the night a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
I've never heard you snore. Sometimes your breathing is a little heavy, but there's no snoring. Because when I really had the bad sleep apnea, I would wake her up because I would gasp and shake the whole bed, and she would wake up. And then she'd sit there and count 1001, 1002. So 15, 20 seconds, I wouldn't breathe. And then I would gasp. And then what would happen, I get a nice little adrenaline shot, and then I'd be up the rest of the night. That was scary. That was really scary. So I probably don't have sleep apnea, but my doc said that to keep it on for at least the first part of the night so we have the data. So if someone asks, do you have the data? We can say, here's the data.
Well, isn't sleep apnea kind of like a diabetic? I mean, like my wife, she's diabetic, but her labs are fine. She, got off the insulin. They're talking about possibly even taking her off the metformin. All she's taking is her Manjaro. And, it's like the endocrinologist said, well, once you're diabetic, you're always a diabetic. So, it doesn't matter, if you're not taking the metformin, you're still considered diabetic. Isn't sleep apnea the same type of thing? Just like obesity, just because we're not suffering from it now because of the tools that we're using in our lifestyle, we still have the disease of obesity.
Correct. So what my doctor said is that it doesn't matter if you're not experiencing sleep apnea. The thing is, if you go off the medication, you will experience it again.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's a similar thing. And some people, their sleep apnea is more related to, their weight because of what's happening in the neck, which I've lost. And for some others, I mean, I had someone that I knew who was just skinny and trimmy and had sleep apnea. And it had nothing to do with weight. So it's a lot to do with the physiology also, but obviously it could be both. So yeah, I think you're right. I think once you're diagnosed with sleep apnea, then you're there, because if you gain the weight, then you'll be back into sleep apnea because your physiology is not drastically changed.
Let's talk a little bit about your channel. Tell me about it.
Oh, my channel. So here's the funny part. And I blame Lorraine and Chris. Of course, they inspired me. I said, well, if they can do it, maybe I can do it. And I figured that it would be something for me to do to keep me on target, because I would have to talk about my journey. I'm on week 33, I guess. If I wasn't doing things from my phone, I would show you a picture. I took all my Tirzepatide pens, put them on the floor, and had my cat come up and sniff them, and I took a picture. So probably you'll see that someday. So I started very lowly, and I'm up to maybe 43 or 45 episodes at this point. So I've been doing it only I think since October or so. So to try to do 1 or 2 a week.
Hmm.
Now I've split them where one, I'm doing just my journey with something, something that might be helpful. And the other one is a deep dive on some aspect. And so I call it GLP ones for seniors, and I'm trademarking it. So I'm going through the process of doing a trademark
Awesome.
because what I found out that there's very few of us, if any, that combine the lived experience of doing GLP ones, some science background, and targeting seniors. So those three, and then maybe another fourth leg is trying to be an encourager, which
Hmm.
I'm actually a pastor, elder in my
Hmm.
church also. So I have that little bent, among other things, cooking and pastoring. Oh, never mind. That's my next channel. Kidding. So it's fun, and honestly, there's sometimes that I do these episodes, and I'm almost in tears because I realize how much I was helped by listening
Hmm.
to other people, like Lorraine and Christopher, for example. Um, encouraging me in my journey. So then I realize that I have something that I can actually give from my own
Hmm.
experience. And having a little bit of a science background, so sort of being a little bit of a nerd geek, um, I can do the deep research. Unfortunately, some of the articles that I'd like to read are behind paywalls, and I don't. It's $35 a pop, so
Hmm.
I read the abstracts. Some of them are not, and I think one of the trends that we're starting to see in a lot of people that are in the influencers, but are people that are scientifically that they're MDs, they're PhDs. What they're realizing is that this is one of the things that is missing. That a lot of this great research is inaccessible to people who might have a little bit of a interest or even a science background to go get this stuff. But you're not going to pay all this money for
Right.
$35. Now I do from occasion pay the $35 because I'm doing a research on my work side, but I'm not paying for it. My client is, so I can charge them. So yeah, so that's the channel, and it's been a joy. And I'm not sitting there going, okay, I want 1,000 subscribers and I want to be monetized. No, I'm enjoying what I'm doing.
Absolutely.
I'm getting something out of it personally also. So
Yeah, very hard to make a career out of it. I know some like Christopher and Lorraine, they do have their other job. I know they're considering going into this a little bit more, but they have 30, 40,000 subscribers, compared to like, I only have 1,600, a little bit
and
of a
as of
difference.
this morning, I think I have 271. Woo!
Hmm.
So
But as I start slowing down in my work, I need something to do. I'm not the type that could just sit around and do nothing. I actually have a TV channel too that I just started. So it's like I need to have something to do,
yeah,
keep my mind going and so
at some
forth.
point I might retire, whatever that means. But I'm a self-employed person, right? So I have my own company, and so I'm an environmental consultant. And most of the work that I do is in natural resources sciences, right? So, for instance, this is my bailiwick. I'm a weapons ecologist and wildlife biologist, and so that's what I do. And so I could probably still do this and this
Hmm.
in my 70s, Lord willing, if I got a few years there. Um, so yeah, I'm having fun. I'm having fun talking with you, Laurie. Thank you.
And
Thank you for
hey,
inviting.
thank you. If we could help one person, to me, it's all worth it.
That's exactly right. And actually, I've had a few people now, probably 3 or 4, that have come to me. And as a matter of fact, there's one, hey, Kathy, if you see this one, this is for you. She's starting Tirzepatide today, first shot. And she's actually someone who struggled with her weight for a very long time. And she's in the medical field too, right?
Yep.
And so she heard my channel. She talked to my wife, her friends, and we've texted a little bit. So went into the channel and watched a few things, and so that was exciting.
That's great. That's great. So I tend to kind of wrap these things up with asking you, what would your best advice be to somebody that's thinking about doing a GLP-1 medication?
Don't sweat it. This works. I'm a lived experience. Lori's a lived experience.
Mm-hmm.
The side effects are very manageable. You know, if you know how to manage them. Like constipation would be one. And if you balance a little bit of discomfort with all the amazing benefits that you will get from health, there's no comparison. There's absolutely no comparison. So, as Christopher Durham would say, take the shot.
Absolutely. So I want to thank you for taking time out of your day. It's been a pleasure. And when you reach maintenance for a little bit, maybe we'll do a follow-up interview, see how it's all going.
That'd be great. That'd be great, Laurie. So good to talk to you.
Okay, with that, I'm going to say this is a wrap. I want to remind everybody that George's information is going to be linked in the description.
Okay.